Hello everyone, we are here with a new video before we go on vacation for a few weeks. Just a refresher, this is only going to put like an extra week. This is going to put like a 1 week delay on the next chapter, so instead of 2 weeks from now, you'll get the video in 3 weeks, I believe. Because we just did a little R&R, man. She's been working too hard, and I'm trying not to let my children kill me. So, but before we go on vacation, we are going to do one more chapter, and I kind of feel like this one's going to be a good one to leave you guys with for the next few weeks. But before we do that, let's see what you guys had to say about the last chapter.
Okay. Light Hero Kaiser. Great chapter, mate. Can't wait for more. Okay, so first, I was right about closing the wound, and I can't stand seeing his mom and dad as well as Mina like this, so...
He was the one that predicted last time that they would use Todoroki's fire to... Yeah, that. Good call on that, man.
Pulls out hunting rifle. Where's Moonfish? I'm going hunting and not for fun. Who am I kidding? Of course, this is going to be fun. Goes looking for Moonfish. Here, fishy, fishy, fishy. Blade Hero Light signing out.
I actually don't know why that villain's name is Moonfish. I don't... Like, is a moonfish like a type of fish that has like really sharp teeth or something?
I feel like we should look that up now.
Okay, I'll have to look that up like in between this filming session and the next one, I think. All right, Silver 4700. This one's mine.
There you go.
Don't begrudge me this. All right, Silver 4700 says, "First, gotta level with you, my man. My list of SAO abridged references keeps getting shorter. Also, I couldn't really find a place in this chapter where I could put a reasonable reference. I mean, dude, it's a great show, but there's only so many quotes you can go on. I'm surprised you've had this many for so long, to be honest. We're into the 30s here." Let's see. So he says, "So I'm going to put this kind of a stretched reference right here instead. Shigaraki. Alright everyone, thanks again for coming to our little powwow. We're about to launch our second assault against UA, and I brought this guidebook off the black market that should help us beat the students and heroes." Opens book. "Now then, if we face off against someone particularly strong, they will send wave after wave of disposable students and heroes at us, and we must answer in kind." Dabi. What? Shigaraki. "Send the weaker villains first. Good rule of thumb. If a villain asks for 2 monies after meeting you, front lines." Spinner. Serves them right. Shigaraki. "If a villain hijacks conversations to rant about their political views, front lines." Spinner. "Oh crap. That's not a stretch, man. That Spinner would absolutely be that guy that hijacks the conversation to talk about his political views. That's half of his thing. That's what he does when he's killing people." That was a good reference, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. That's not a stretch at all. Let's see, I'm going to stop right there. Anyways, the chapter itself was good to read. You did a good job of writing everyone's panic in general, and the fights were just fun to read. Also, Mr. Freaking Compress. As much as I love him, and as much as I like how you wrote him in terms of his character and even reactions, behind a porcelain freaking mask no less, I have to say it was hilarious to imagine a little girl beating the crap out of him like she was a member of the mafia or something. Also, all in all, it was a fun chapter to read, and I can't wait to see the villain hideout raid coming up. That'll be interesting, and good luck. Silver. Thanks for your review, dude. And again, that's not a stretch reference at all. That was good, dude. That was an excellent parallel. I don't know what you're saying. That's kind of a stretch for.
All right, Noob Kid 53. Have we had Noob Kid before?
Yeah. Oh, he's been in a few times.
Cool. This makes me feel like the pro heroes are absolutely useless in this. Lol. Even in canon, nobody was in critical condition besides maybe Midoriya and Tomoko, and the Ruby people were all there as well.
That's not correct. There were several people that were admitted in critical condition. Hagakure and Jiro were admitted because they got severe poisoning, so they ended up in the hospital. Yairozu got clocked over the head really bad. She was like bleeding out real bad, so she got admitted as well. They weren't in great shape. Deku was definitely in critical condition by the time they wheeled him out there. And as for the pro heroes being useless, I'm going to disagree with you there. They just weren't in this chapter so much because there wasn't a whole lot that I could change with them. Like, I think the only thing...
They still did the same thing they did in
they did the same thing as the original. The only thing that changed was how Vlad King took down Dabi. He tried to roast Kirishima and Mina first. Kirishima got in the way, and then Vlad King. And that was because the layout of the classroom worked a little bit differently because of the way that Mina was reacting, because she could feel that something was wrong. But other than that, they pretty much did the same thing. And Aizawa and Vlad King kick ass, so no, they're not useless. They're awesome. How dare you, sir?
There's just a few more little elements that are thrown in and change the situation.
Yeah, like I said, the villain, change the pro heroes parts in it too much, so I didn't feel that it was necessary to cover their involvement, because it's just kind of a given as to what happened.
All right.
But thank you for your review.
Yeah. Fairy Sin Girl. Oh, snap. Things really aren't looking good for Class 1A now that Bakugo's been taken by the League of Villains.
Wah, wah, wah.
And poor Kurai is still in really critical condition, with Mina being extremely worried about him and not being able to be by his side as he's being taken to the hospital. But at least Aizawa promised, to let her be Kurai's first visitor. Mm-hmm. And I like how Mina and Ida comforted each other and cried together over Kurai's condition. And not to mention Kurai's parents being shocked and worried at hearing what happened to their son. I hope Kurai will be able to pull through this and live. I don't like seeing his friends and family so worried like this, especially Mina when she was practically panicking with worry over him.
Well,
I feel like every time people predict his death, they forget, like, when did he have time to record that audio?
Yep. I mean, again, I'll explain that.
Okay. All right. Joe, thanks, Fairy Sin Girl.
Thank you.
All right. Joe Clone, I'm still trying to process this. It's a great chapter, but it's so heart-shattering. Todoroki's hesitation to cauterize Kurai's wound, not to mention poor Mina seemingly detecting his pain. Ruby and Ochako versus Toga was pretty awesome. It's always fun seeing Ruby lose her cool. Shouldering a whole tree? Man, that was creative.
It was really fun, too.
The villains felt exactly like their counterparts from the anime. Even Cinder felt like her old self, very interested. Sorry, guys. And how you'll utilize her going forward, and possibly more Ruby borrowed ideas.
I think these guys are going to like what I have in mind for Cinder.
I think so. Yeah. I honestly was half expecting Roman Torchwick to show up on the comms.
Not yet.
See you next chapter, Mataras. Here's hoping Kai's light doesn't go out just yet.
You'll have the answer to that by the end of this chapter. That I can promise you.
Alright. Thanks, Joe Clone.
Thank you, sir.
Silikita! Alright, I had to go and binge watch Parks and Rec so that I could laugh and feel good about myself again after reading this.
Ooh,
that is
dude.
A mood, man.
Dude.
That is such a mood. My heart, man, why you gotta do this?
Because it's my job?
Bro, I live with him. He does this to me. I'm so far ahead on the outlines, and it just, every time he explains it, I'm like, ugh. Okay. Anyway,
don't discourage my readers.
The opening scene, no, we love it. We love it. This is why we keep coming back.
Okay, all right. You just made it sound like I was going to make everybody keep feeling bad.
No. It's so good. It's so good. I forget that some of these plot points don't happen in the anime sometimes, and then I get confused.
Oh, okay.
The opening scene alone had me feeling for the characters even more than in this last chapter. I'm so sorry. I mean, forcing Todoroki to set aside his childhood trauma on the spot so that he can save Ikari was a brilliant narrative move. But I still get the feeling that that's going to do a number on his head when he has time to process. And he has enough problems up there as it is. Mina, dude. Why do I feel so much for characters who aren't even real? That poor girl. At the same time, I'm loving the early Unbreakable moment that Kirishima had going on. You tell Dobby, man. You were a manly hero, no doubt. Love it. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of expecting you to have Midoriya go back and check on Yang once he dropped off Dakota and all that, since he knew that she had been injured. But it does make sense that he'd be his usual single-minded self and go make sure Bakugo is still alive.
That's a good point.
Ruby and Uraraka tag teamed Toga, and it was really fun to watch. That chick gives me major creeps. I don't care how cute she is. Bro, she's so freaking creepy. I don't get why people are... I think we talked about this last time. I don't get why people are...
People have problems.
Yeah. I never thought about how well their quirks could be used together. Nice. Cinder's introduction was perfect. Though, I gotta say, I'm a little surprised / disappointed that there was no Emerald or Mercury with her. Seems like a good place to bring them in. But I'll assume that you have something else in mind for them, which I shall eagerly await.
I'll pause right there. So, I did think about bringing them in at this point, but it felt like it would be too... I only... How how do I put this? Like, I only wanted to increase the risk factor to the heroes a certain amount. I didn't want to increase it to the point where, like, there would just be no chance of that. There would be no chance of them winning at all. Like, I wanted there to at least be, in both for the characters to feel and for the narrative to feel as though the heroes might have a chance to actually bring Bakugo out of it safely. If I had thrown Emerald and Mercury in there, there's no way that would have happened. They're too good. So I decided to hold off on them for the time being. They will be in the story eventually, but now is not the time.
Okay. I also want to see what you do with Roman Torchwick. That's not to take away from Cinder. By the way, sorry. Her character... Wait. That's not to take away from... Sorry, dyslexia. Cinder. By the way, her character and the way she carried herself felt just like it did when she came into the picture with Ruby. Utterly ruthless and unafraid to use whatever means necessary to secure the long game, even at the cost of a momentary inconvenience. Using Hikari as a hostage to buy Compress enough time to get away. Ruby beating the stuffing out of Compress made me laugh, even if only for a moment, which I imagine was the point. You seem to avoid making your chapter one tone all the way through, and without that one part, this whole thing would have been pretty depressing.
I mean, I feel like the whole thing was depressing anyways, but yeah, I do try to... I feel like I try to, like, where do I get that from? So, there was a, it wasn't a meme that I saw, but it was kind of a description of, like, why to watch Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, because it's, like, it's a show where, I can name several episodes where this happens, it makes you feel the entire spectrum of emotions. Yeah. Like, it's not just, like, some of them it's like, oh god, this is horrible the whole way through. But a lot of them, it's like, it'll make you, like, you'll be crying, laughing one minute, then you'll be crying sad because somebody died the next. And like, I don't think I'm
emotionally.
Yeah. Like, if it feels flat, then you're just kind of like, oh, I expect this from this, and you just kind of, I feel like you get detached from it in general as a story. If you want people to be invested in something that needs to be, it needs to be closer to real life, and in real life, I hope you're not feeling one emotion all the time. If you are, please seek medical attention. But yeah, you're right. I try not to make. I try to make my chapters have some variety in them in terms of emotional input. What is that? Is that output for me and input for you guys, or what? I don't know how to describe.
I guess I would say output.
I don't know. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm doing.
No, you're good. That made sense to me, at least.
Okay.
Especially with Bakugo, since Bakugo got kidnapped, even after what Hikari did for him. Why? You nearly killed and possibly going to kill your main character. And for what? I know you have a reason and you're very confident that it'll be a good one, but this is so frustrating. I know my emotions are playing on your whims and I hate it. But I love your writing too much to stop coming back. Aww. You aren't
Dance, puppets, dance!
You aren't even letting us know if he survives yet or not. How long do we have to wait to know the answers?
Give it like 2 minutes, man.
Oh, and just to add insult to injury, you actually have Mina and Ida breaking down together because they are worried about Hikari. That, more than anything, makes me worry. Did you guys see the art, by the way? Oh my gosh. That you're actually about to kill him off. Because while I know they are both close to him, their interactions haven't been too great up to now. To have them bridge the gap just seems like a setup for something even worse that's about to happen. Now, I need to go watch more Parks and Rec. I'm so sad right now. You don't even know.
So that scene where Ida and Mina are breaking down together, the artwork that I did for that was actually the last piece that I did for this comic strip. I'm trying to think. So throughout this chapter that you're about to hear, we'll actually see the rest of the artwork that I've prepared for this. That I prepared for this sequence of events in particular.
Bye, little Sebastian.
What are you doing right now?
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I'm a jerk. I'm sorry, Silikita. I love that show.
It's a good show.
One of my favorites, for sure.
So yeah, I think it's gonna be like another six images or so. But I think I spent like a total of like a month on all these things.
Yeah.
Like,
you were working on those for a while.
Yeah. Most of them I got done like in the span of 3 weeks, and then I did I did one of them a couple of months ago, and then I did the one with Ida and Mina like last month, I think.
I think it's been proven to be a really good exercise though, because you've improved a lot in the course of working on it. So
it's
pretty cool.
Yeah. But I will stop torturing you guys and keeping you in suspense at this point in time, and I will let you listen on to find out whether or not this is it for Kurai. So we will be back in a little bit to discuss behind the scenes and the concept of this chapter in general. Catch you in a minute.
Candles in the wind.
Stop singing, little Sebastian!
I feel alive, I'm made of fire. No time to die, pushing my body. Day or night, I'll do what's right. No time to die, can't break my body. I'm taking the right time to figure out what's mine and make it my own. Can't break my body.
Because of this. The sound of helicopter blades whirred across the nighttime sky as the emergency vehicle hurtled toward the nearest hospital. Inside the transport, a trio of EMTs were working ceaselessly, trying to sustain the life of one very weak student, none of them overly confident about his chances of surviving his ordeal. Victim suffered major blood loss and correspondence with the right arm. He's gone into hypovolemic shock. One of the workers, a middle-aged man, kept his eye on the boy's vitals, praying that the weakened heartbeats would sustain themselves long enough for them to get to the hospital. Due to the severity of the wound and the necessity for immediate treatment, the boy had been the only one approved for an airlift. The other students that had been badly injured would be taken to the city via ambulance. They had to take into account and compensate for the changes in air pressure that the flight would put on the boy's ruined body, but the speed at which they could get him to the hospital outweighed those concerns. Does he need a quirk particulate in the blood transfusions? Negative. Quirk is non-heteromorphic. Wound status? Another EMT, this one a younger woman, was using her quirk to dull the boy's sense of pain as best she could. They couldn't afford to give him anesthesia at this point, or else he could flatline. According to his classmates, the remains of the arm was cauterized via an incendiary burst from a quirk, so it's likely sterile and the bleeding has slowed. That might also be due to how much blood he'd lost by that point. According to his student ID, he'll need B-negative blood. Misa, radio to the hospital. Tell them to have several bags ready. Yes, sir. The older man looked down at the pale boy as he breathed shallowly and murmured, "Hang on, kid. Don't you dare die on my watch, you hear?" "Dear?" Mocha Hogasha widened her eyes in alarm as her husband stood up from where he had been sitting by their younger son's bedside. Pale and jaw locked, his hands shook while he pocketed his phone. What's wrong? The last time he had looked like this, he had been on the receiving end of the news that his brother had died in the line of duty. "That was Eraserhead," he answered numbly. "The camp was attacked by the League of Villains." "What?" Despite the alarm clutching deep at her gut, she kept her voice down, not wanting to wake Akurui after he had fallen into a peaceful slumber. "Is Kurai okay? And the other students?" Her husband was silent for a few seconds before he slowly shook his head in the negative, and Mocha felt her stomach drop into a yawning chasm. "It's bad, Mocha," he said grimly. "One of the students was kidnapped by the League, but it seems they want him alive, so we might be able to get him back. I have to go to the office to get the manhunt started. The League is now being recognized as an official terrorist organization instead of a local gang. It's a national-level threat now." "Kurai," Mocha said stubbornly, having noticed that he was avoiding the subject of their child. "What happened to him? Where is our son?" "On his way to the hospital," he answered flatly, appearing drained of nearly all his vitality. "A villain got him. In the forest. Eraser didn't have time to give me all the details, but from what I understand, Kurai put himself between a classmate and a villain, and now he's seriously injured enough that they're flying him out." "How seriously?" "I need to make a call." The doors to the hospital burst inward as Kurai was wheeled in on a mobile bed, and the nurses shouting at the other staff to get out of the way as they made a beeline for the surgery room. "We're losing him!" shouted one of them, a woman with blue skin and hair. "They'd better have those bags ready. The patient's parents are on their way down. They want to know his status. They can wait until the surgery's done." At this point, Kurai well could have been a corpse with how pale and gray he had become. The only indication that he'd lived was his shallow breaths into a CPAP mask and the offbeat beeping of the heart monitor that he had been attached to. The second that he had been transferred to the operating table, however, his heart faltered, and the increasingly irregular blips on the EKG let the doctor and nurses know that things were getting much worse. "Clear him!" the doctor ordered, sweat already lining his furrowed brow as he began to use his quirk to control Kurai's blood flow in the remains of his arm, keeping the wound from shedding any more of the precious liquid. His heart's gone into ventricular tachycardia. We need a defibrillator. Now! One of the nurses transformed his hand into a pair of sharp scissors that slashed through the boy's shirt, leaving his lean abdomen exposed to the air and surgical lights. Another prepped the machine and stood by, ready for the doctor to give the order. He did so, and the young man placed the metal pieces in the correct area before shouting, "Clear!" A surge of electricity pumped through Kurai's body, causing his back to arch involuntarily before the power was cut, and he slumped back on the table. Fortunately, he only needed one jolt and a few seconds of CPR to get his heart going steadily again, which filled the doctor with a temporary surge of relief, but he knew that his patient was far from safe. His years of experience had told him that they had just barely pulled the boy back from an asystole, and Kurai was nowhere near out of the woods yet. "Get the blood transfusion going now," he ordered briskly. "Yuki, get those scalpels and stitches where I can reach them. Ryotaru, make sure to keep that AED charged. Daizo, if he drops into ventricular fibrillation, you're in charge of CPR, so keep that pump prepped. Shigeru, clean his left leg so we can graft from the thigh. Move it, people. This kid's still in bad shape." 1 minute earlier. Kurai opened his eyes to see that he was standing before a massive gate that looked as though it had been shaped out of the largest, purest diamond born from someone's wildest fantasy of riches. The fence surrounding it was made of gold, and yet it did not seem quite like the gold that he was familiar with. This substance, whatever it was, seemed as though it represented the very idea of the purest gold that one could imagine. Beyond the barrier, he could see countless people and fine buildings, all of them made of pure marble that lined the streets of gold. They all radiated strength and safety, and somehow a grand purpose that he simply could not wrap his mind around. Looking down at himself, he was surprised to see that he was dressed in his favorite casual clothes, and even more shocking, his right arm was fully intact, as if his injury had never occurred at all. "Huh," he muttered as he looked back up, his mind finally registering what had happened. "Somehow I imagined more clouds and angels singing everywhere." "The choir is actually further inside, near the throne room," said a familiar voice that caused Kurai's eyes to widen and his jaw to drop as he spotted the speaker. That person smiled widely at him and held out his arms to either side as he stood at the entrance to the Grand City. "Hey, Kurai. Didn't expect to see you for a while longer, but it's good to see you anyway." "Uncle Shiro!" the boy exclaimed, running toward the man as fast as he could, colliding with him hard enough to nearly knock the other man off his feet. "It's so good to see you!" "You too, kid." The older man laughed as he released his nephew. "You filled out since I last saw you. I bet the ladies love you down below." Kurai let out a laugh of his own as he grabbed his uncle by the shoulders and answered, "Just one, but she's amazing. Way out of my league." "No girl is out of your league, my boy." Shiro laughed again. "I've seen a bit of what you've been up to, and I gotta say, I couldn't be prouder of what you've accomplished." "I feel like I could have done more, but I guess that's all done now." Kurai shrugged, feeling oddly at peace with the fact. I thought I'd be more upset about being dead, but somehow I feel like everything is going to sort itself out, and it takes a big load off my shoulders." "You mean that part about you becoming one of the next symbols of peace, like All Might?" his uncle asked with a raised eyebrow. "I think you would have been even better than the man himself, and this is coming from a cop that's grateful to him for helping us out on more than one bad situation." "Hey, if you knew about that, then you already know about Midoriya, right?" Kurai countered. "He'll be a good enough hero for the both of us, I know it." "Maybe." Shiro shrugged. "I get to see and hear a few things about you and your family every once in a while, so I have a general idea of what you've been through. But I gotta say, Kurai, I think your work isn't quite done just yet." "Come again?" "They're getting ready to take you back down there," Shiro said as he cocked his head as if he were listening to something in the distance. "Time doesn't really work the same way up here, so we have a little while before they get going on that." What, seriously?" Kurai asked, his eyes going wide again, this time with worry. "Don't I get a say in whether or not I go back?" "You can always take it up with the ancestors," Shiro replied as he jerked the thumb over his shoulder, indicating a huge castle that towered far above many of the other buildings in the city. "It's ultimately their call, but I'm sure they'd hear you out if you'd like." "I mean," Kurai hesitated, looking down at his right arm and flexing his hand a few times. "What's waiting for me if I do go back? A lot of pain and suffering for starters, not to mention a legacy that I'm not too psyched about taking on, if I'm being honest." "You've got that girl you mentioned," Shiro pointed out. "What's her name, Mira?" "Mina," Kurai corrected him. "She's great, and I love her, as weird as that might be for someone my age. Kid, I was in love with your aunt from the time we were in junior high." "Okay, so there's that," Kurai conceded. "I know Mom, Dad, and Nakarui would miss me, along with all my friends, but..." "Okay, yeah, that'd be a downer. Plus, I know I could do a lot of good as a hero. I'd be able to make sure that the stuff I've had to go through doesn't happen to other kids like me." "All that's true, but know that you're not really obligated to go back," Shiro told him. "Don't feel like you have to." "Okay, which side are you on?" Kurai asked with a wry grin. Well, the second you're hinting that I should go back willingly, now you're saying that I shouldn't feel bad about staying. Which is it? Both. My point is that either way, you can afford to be at peace. You've done a lot of good in a short time, and you can be proud of that. But you could do even more good for the people down there, and if that's the case, you should do it gladly, because the opportunity is there. I'm real proud of you, and I just want to see that you're content with your path, no matter which way the ancestors send you. I think that'll be pretty hard to do if I do go back, but I give it my best shot, Kurai shrugged. If that ends up being the case, is there anything you want me to tell your family? Send your aunt my love and tell Shuken to stay away from my pipe collection, Shudo said with a half grimace. Your grandfather gave me that, and they're really not supposed to be for recreational use. You seem more upset about the pipes than the fact that he's smoking underage. Kurai laughed, though he was surprised at his cousin's irresponsible behavior. He knew that Shuken had a mischievous streak, but not quite like that. I did the same thing back in the day, so I can't really judge, Shudo sighed. If you don't mind, tell your father that I never regretted joining him on that raid. Even though Endeavor felt nothing after your sacrifice? Kurai asked, his voice a little irritated. Even so, Shudo laughed again. Don't you worry about him, understand? He has a role to play yet. If you say so, Kurai sighed. Raising an eyebrow, a thought occurred to him as he said, From the way that you're talking, I'm guessing that the doctors are about to succeed in reviving me, aren't they? Sorry, kid, Shudo shrugged. Time's up. But I'll be waiting for you again when the time comes. Same spot? Kurai asked, feeling his eyelids becoming heavy. You got it. Goodbye, Kurai. Don't take this the wrong way, but I hope it's a long time before I see you again. I'm going to be a hero, he replied drowsily. No promises about me taking my time and getting back here. And with that, he fell back into slumber, his spirit journeying swiftly back to the realm of mortals. You hear me, kid? I'm getting really sick of waking up in hospitals. Hey, I need to know if you can hear me. The nurse, at least he assumed it was a nurse, said a little more loudly than before. Tell me your name if you can hear me.
Hogosha.
He croaked out, his throat feeling like sandpaper.
Kurai, UA student, Class 1A.
Despite his return to awareness, he kept his eyes shut, not wanting to force them to deal with the bright lights that would no doubt be pointed at his face. Fortunately, he wasn't in any real pain, though he imagined that was likely because of whatever painkillers they had managed to put him on. He could also feel some kind of mask had been fitted onto his face, though he wasn't quite aware enough to figure out why he would need one yet. Good, that's great, the nurse said, sounding relieved. Can you open your eyes?
Is there a light pointed at my face?
Kurai groused. We've got the lights dimmed in here so you can get used to them, the man assured him. Please open them so we can determine that they're working properly.
Fine.
Making sure to move his eyelids slowly, he was relieved to find that the nurse was telling the truth about the lighting in the room. As he flicked his tired orbs from spot to spot, he realized that he was not in a standard room like the last couple of times he had been confined to a bed.
Where am I?
The ICU ward at Hosu General, the nurse explained as he moved into Kurai's field of vision. You're a breathing miracle, kid. Doctor didn't think you were going to make it. He was a plain-looking man, save for the third and fourth eyes that sat on his brow.
Sure, I didn't make it.
Kurai coughed, his throat somehow feeling even drier than when he had first come to. You almost flatlined for a few seconds, but after they got your heartbeat going steady, the doctor was able to perform surgery.
Surgery?
Kurai repeated thickly, not understanding at first. Then his eyes were drawn toward his right, and he felt his heart sink.
Yeah. That.
His arm had been completely severed a few inches above where his elbow had been. In place of the limb was a mound of bloody bandages, underneath what he knew would find stitches and skin stretched tightly together. On reflex, he clenched his left hand, though the movement was somewhat impaired by the IV tube sticking out of a vein. I'm sorry, kid, the nurse said sympathetically as he made some notes into the tablet. Your classmates said they had to cauterize the wound, and the arm was pretty much in pieces when they left it. The bleeding is from new incisions that you sustained during the operation that I mentioned earlier. Some skin was grafted from your left leg, so it's going to be sore for a while, too. You can get a replacement prosthetic in the future, but it won't be the same, and due to the burns you sustained, the operation and rehabilitation to connect the nerves will be painful.
When can I see my family?
Kurai asked a bit raggedly, not wanting to listen to the bad news that he had already guessed at. They're here, and so are some of your friends, but the doctor wants to come in and see you first, the nurse replied calmly, seemingly unaffected by Kurai's change in tone. You've been out for more than a day.
Wait.
Kurai said, alarm shooting through him hard enough that he nearly sat up, only to be defeated by the fatigue and the blood loss that inflicted on him.
My classmates. How did I forget? Is everyone okay?
Calm down, you're still very weak, the nurse said firmly as he moved toward the sink. From what I know, most of your classmates only sustained light injuries, and the ones that were hurt pretty badly have already been seen to by a recovery girl. They are all expected to make full recoveries.
Damn.
Kurai muttered as he leaned back into his pillows.
I guess we should be grateful that no one was killed.
With you on the mend, that's certainly true. By the time the doctor came in to see him, Kurai had started to inch back toward the realm of sleep, so it wasn't until the man was at his bedside that he registered he had a visitor. Good morning, the man said as he peered down at his patient. I'm Dr. Akabane. How are you doing?
You have very red eyes.
Kurai answered through his mask. Indeed, the man's eyes and hair were both the brightest shade of crimson, enough to remind the patient of a shiny new street sign. I think I hit my head on that tree harder than I thought. Still woozy from the blood loss, I see. The man chuckled a little dryly. That should go away soon enough. You got lucky. We had some of your blood type stored, but we also had a fresh donor who volunteered on your behalf.
Yay.
Are you in any pain right now?
No, sir.
Did the nurse inform you of your skin graft?
Yes, sir.
Good. Recovery girl should be over to help heal you over the next few days, but she did say that she's going to have to space out the sessions in order for your body to recover its natural energy reserves. The man explained as he appeared at a chart on his clipboard. I'm sorry that we weren't able to do anything for your arm.
I'll live.
Kurai grunted noncommittally. You cut that pretty close too, the doctor said with a wondering shake of his head. You'd suffered enough blood loss to kill you on its own, not to mention the blunt force trauma to your head, among other injuries your classmates said were inflicted by villains while you were unconscious.
As far as head injuries go, that's pretty light for me.
Yes, I've seen recovery girl's notes on the side effects concerning your quirk. Akabane sighed as he lowered the charts. The fact that kids like you are encouraged to push yourself so hard under these circumstances, in spite of the villains going after you, makes me kind of glad that my daughter didn't make it in, if I'm being honest. In spite of himself, Kurai found equal measures of his curiosity and irritation being aroused.
Your daughter wants to be a hero?
He mumbled thickly, deciding that it might be better not to throw shade at the guy responsible for his well-being at the moment. Yeah, but she wound up going to the general studies course at UA, the man answered. She's a first year, like you. He hesitated before adding, she really admires your class, seeing all you guys have accomplished.
Such as nearly getting pulled by a monster the first week of school. Getting mutilated by a cannibal during summer break.
Kurai deadpanned. There goes good manners, I suppose. Well, while that's true, you also survived both times, gone on to win the sports festival, and stopped a major terrorist strike on Island. The doctor countered, seemingly having missed the change in Kurai's tone. Your parents raised a good kid, Hogosha. That being said, I don't think anyone would blame you if you decided to fall back from the hero course after this. Being a hero, well, it can take more than just a physical toll, and not just on the heroes themselves. He almost seemed to be saying the last part to himself more than to his patient. Kurai's eyes narrowed before he said,
I'll bear that in mind.
Finally sensed that he must have irritated the boy, Dr. Akabane made a gesture of apology before saying, Sorry, that was insensitive. I mostly meant to say that even if you continue in the hero course, you're not going to be able to participate in a lot of the physical classes until you've got a replacement arm and been through the proper rehabilitation.
Look, sir.
Kurai sighed as he aimed his gaze up at the ceiling.
Going into the hero course, I knew that something like this could happen. I accepted those risks, and even if I'm still just in school, I have to accept the consequences of my actions. If it was this, or my classmates getting killed and eaten, I'd do this again every time. So, don't dump a pity party on me. I need help getting better so I can get back into it as soon as possible. Can you help me to do that?
The doctor was quiet for a minute before he chuckled sheepishly and rubbed at his neck while he said, I guess it's for a good reason that you're in the hero course, huh? You're right. It's my job to get you back up on your feet. I'm sorry I let my own feelings about all this get in the way. Kurai shrugged and replied,
You're a good dad if you're worried about your daughter's well-being, sir. But if it's all the same to you, you should work on your bedside manner.
You're not dying!
Not anymore, you mean.
The visit with the doctor took less than 15 minutes, but Kurai was impatient, so the time seemed to pass a lot more slowly than he was used to, much to his irritation. However, it felt rather ironic that when at last his family was allowed into the room, he nearly wished that he could send them away as soon as he saw his mother's face crumple in light of what had happened to him.
Do I really look that bad?
he asked with a wry smile beneath his breathing mask as his father stepped in behind his mother, who was already fighting back the tears.
If I look as bad as the painkillers are keeping me from feeling, then I know I look pretty bad.
I see your sense of humor has survived, his father said with a strained smile that it was clear that even he, the hardened police officer that had seen all manners of evil that Japan had to offer, was rattled by the sight of his son's mutilated body. His mother approached him slowly, reaching out to him, but also drawing back just shy of touching him. Seeing this, he reached out his left hand and said,
Mom, there's so many narcotics right now, I don't feel a thing. Touching me is not gonna hurt.
You're not on any drugs, his father informed him. They told us that if they had given you any anesthesia, your heart would have given out. Fortunately, one of the orderlies that assisted in the operation has a quirk that blocks a person's ability to feel pain for a certain amount of time. She's been coming in every few hours to refresh the effect, but she says it'll wear off completely by tomorrow, even if she uses it again.
So that's why I'm not on cloud 9 despite the fact that I can't feel anything?
Kurai mused.
Please tell me I get drugs once this gimmick is up.
Something that every police officer wants to hear from their son, his father said with a wan smile as he placed both hands on his wife's shoulders, who still had yet to speak. She could only switch her gaze between Kurai's face and his stump of an arm. But yes, you'll be put on painkillers as soon as the doctor says you're strong enough to handle them. Trying to force himself to think about something else, Kurai cleared his throat and asked,
How's Akurui?
His father hesitated before he answered. He's doing well, all things considered. He'll be up here tomorrow to visit you. He's been trying to hide the fact that he hates his wheelchair. Even I wouldn't have guessed, but it turns out that your mother pays a little more attention to him than I do. Kurai couldn't help but smile a little bit at that.
You're only busy trying every day to keep the city safe, right? I think it's okay if you miss a few social cues from your son. I'll probably be the same if I ever decide to have a family in the middle of my hero career.
Hero career? His mother repeated, finally having found her voice. You're still going to become a hero? Even after this? Kurai looked her in the eyes, all humor vanishing from his face as he replied,
I'm going to become a hero because of this. If I have the power to make sure that something like this doesn't happen to someone like me, then I owe it to that person to become the best hero I can be. And no one else should have to suffer like this, Mom.
To his surprise, she gripped his arm tightly and told him, I was worried that this was going to stop your dream of becoming a hero like Shiro. I know how much you looked up to your uncle. Kurai blinked at her a few times before he said in a blank tone,
I expected you to be trying really hard to try to talk me out of becoming a hero after this.
Our family doesn't turn away from evil, son, his father said as he laid a hand on his shoulder, his mother nodding in agreement. I wouldn't stop from something like this, so your mother and I can hardly expect you to cower now. That, and we're proud of you for choosing to continue to face the darkness in spite of this.
Yeah, well.
Kurai shrugged with another grin.
It's easy for me to say this stuff now. Let's see if my bravado holds up once I can feel pain again.
His father laughed a little bit at that while his mother kissed his forehead tenderly, causing him to close his eyes and relax just a little bit. I wish you wouldn't keep putting yourself in these situations, but after everything that your father has done and all the things that I'm sure you will be able to accomplish, I know better than to ask you to stay safe. The woman sighed as she drew back, her eyes still misting. Kurai's brow quirked upwards a little bit at that.
For the record, I didn't choose to get involved with this one. Moonfish attacked me and my friends while we were trying to get to the base camp without running into any villains.
Did you say Moonfish? Hikari's father asked with alarm. That villain is supposed to be...
On death row, yeah.
Kurai shrugged before adding,
Pretty sure he's on his way back to the chamber. Minus his teeth. He might have taken my arm, but I hit him hard enough that he shouldn't have been able to go anywhere for quite a while.
Before his father could make a reply, he was interrupted by his cell phone's ringing. Kurai recognized the tune as being from the station, so he kept quiet while his father retreated into a corner of the room, a frown on his face. Yes, he muttered as he put the device to his ear. This had better be important. I said not to call unless... Oh. I understand. I'll be there soon. Soon is when I arrive at the station, detective, and I'll remind you only once that my son is a victim in all of this too. So don't you dare implicate that I lack a sense of urgency for this case, unless you want to go back to being a beat cop! With an angry motion, he hit the disconnect button and shoved his phone in his pocket. Kurai was shocked. Never in his whole life had he seen his father lose his temperature when it came to police work. Certainly he got angry with his sons and with home repair projects, but when it came to his job, it was unheard of for him to act unprofessionally.
Dad?
He said carefully as the man approached the bed again with a scowl on his face.
What happened?
You don't breathe a word of this to anybody outside of your class, understand?
Yes, sir.
His father sighed and rubbed his forehead as he said in a low voice, One of your classmates was taken by the League during the attack. I've had every officer in the area that I could spare looking for him. Kurai felt his blood go cold in spite of the fact that his body's pain receptors had been temporarily disabled.
Was it Bakugo?
Yes. Kurai felt his stomach drop before anger seized him, and he glared at his ruined limb with something like disgust.
I lost my arm keeping him safe.
He spat bitterly.
You're telling me that was for nothing?
His parents exchanged a glance before his father replied, Moonfish likely would have killed your classmate along with you and the others, ordered to capture him or no. Based on the statements gathered from your peers, I have no doubt that you saved his life. This reminder helped Kurai's temper settle down a little bit, but the fact that he had more or less failed in the end still felt like salt in the wound. Looking up at his dad with a hard light in his eyes, the boy asked,
You have the lead on where he is, don't you?
We think so.
Then do me a favor.
Kurai clenched his remaining fist before growling out,
When you find him, don't let any of your men get hurt like me. Tell them all to be careful, and then beat the League of Villains' asses into the dirt.
Language, son. His mother gave him a disapproving look in spite of herself, while his father merely nodded once. They will all face justice, he promised. We're bringing in Endeavor and All Might for this, along with several other top-ranked heroes.
You know, for once, I'm glad that you'll be working with that pyromaniac. He's not likely to let the League off with a warning.
No. No, he's not. He talked with his father and mother for a few more minutes before the commissioner had to answer the call of duty. His parents left together, but his mother mentioned that she would be back once his friends had a chance to visit him. He wished his father good luck, and then he was alone again. He had avoided mentioning meeting with his uncle, Shiro, mostly because he wasn't sure that he hadn't hallucinated the whole thing. It had all seemed too perfect, too much like something that someone desperate for a peaceful ending could have conjured in their death throes. No, he thought after a few moments of silence. After what I just went through, happy dreams should be the last thing my mind could come up with. I don't care if my heart never stopped beating. I know what I saw, where I went. He didn't even realize that he had fallen asleep until he was awoken by the sound of someone crying next to his bed, on the side with his mutilated arm. He slowly opened his eyes to see Mina sitting on the bench, sobbing softly with her face buried in her hands as her shoulders shook. Hey, sweetheart, he said groggily, prompting her to gasp and look up at him through a film of tears. He noticed that his mask had been removed while he was passed out, so he didn't have to struggle to make himself heard through the plastic and tubing. Kurai, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. Her eyes were deadlocked onto his while his heart sank at seeing her despair. Did they not tell you before? He inquired softly as he reached for her, just managing to fasten a weak grip on her hand when she placed it on his stomach. No, they did. Mina mumbled hesitantly. You were taken away in the helicopter before I could even get to you. I wanted to go with, but they wouldn't let me. Again. Well, you're here now, Kurai said, trying to make himself smile for her, but finding that the will to do so had deserted him. Instead, he tried to find the words to lift her spirits even a little. That makes me feel a little bit better. He noticed that her eyes were purposefully avoiding his arm, but beyond that, they seemed to be attracted to something on his head. Do I have one of those brain scanner things on me? What? No, she said with a slow shake of her head. I just noticed your hair is all. I guess it wasn't important enough for anyone to bring up earlier, but seeing it is still weird, I guess. My hair? He repeated sluggishly. What, did it get burned or something too? No, it... Mina paused before she looked him back in the eyes and murmured, They didn't tell you? No. Oh, she said tiredly. Normally when she had a secret to tease someone with, she would play it up and build on suspense as much as possible, especially when it came to taunting Kurai. Now, however, she simply told him, A bunch of it turned silver on this side. Kurai's eyes widened ever so slightly as he tried to reach up and touch his lengthened strands, but of course such an action was no longer possible for him. His eyes glassed over again and he sank further into his pillows as he murmured, Must have been a result of the shock. He had heard about this happening from his father a few times before, how people's bodies would sometimes manifest signs of their near-death experiences outside of the immediate physical consequences of the events. Some people develop the shakes, some would undergo drastic personality changes, some would manifest a shock of white hair seemingly overnight. There were other symptoms, but they escaped Kurai's exhausted mind at the moment. Mina just stared at him with a quivering lip as tears continued to spill from her eyes while she trembled in her seat. Eventually she said, "This is usually about the time where you make a joke about this." "I got nothing," Kurai admitted, his voice cracking as tears stung at his eyes. Even I can't laugh about this, Mina, not anymore. I don't know what to do." Weakly, he shut his eyes tight as if trying to blot out the world around him, and Mina felt her heart break all over again. She moved quickly to snake her arms underneath his back and pull him close, careful not to touch the bandaged area. Truth be told, she really wanted to kiss him, but she also knew him well enough to be aware of the fact that he would more than likely feel suffocated by such a gesture at the moment. The last thing she wanted was to cause him any more discomfort right now. Kurai leaned into the embrace as best as he could before he finally felt the stinging in his eyes transform into salty rain that fell into Mina's shirt. He didn't know why exactly he'd been putting up a front with his parents and the hospital staff, or why his resolve was crumbling at the moment, but he couldn't help it. Maybe it was because he wanted his parents to worry less about him. After all, they still had Akururi's situation to deal with. Maybe it was due to the fact that every brush with danger he'd had so far, he had never wavered in his decision to become a hero, and he didn't want them to think that he was losing his grip. He just couldn't tell anymore. All he could say was that being in Mina's arms, letting his grief and fear out into the safety of her embrace, was the only thing keeping him from completely falling apart. Kurai had lost his arm. An integral part of his very existence had been violently ripped away from him, and it might have all been for nothing. The shock of the wound and his closest brush with death yet would have been bad enough without the knowledge that it could have been a useless endeavor. If Bakugo was killed by the League, or worse, recruited by them, then his sacrifice would be meaningless. Together, those facts were aiming to crush his spirit into dust, and in that moment, Kurai was unsure whether or not he could keep up the fight like he had vowed to do. After all, if his encounters with evil had shown him anything, it was that he was just a child playing at the role of a proper hero. He had stood up to Nomu and nearly gotten himself killed without even managing to defeat the monster. He had fought alongside Gang Orca and almost cost a pro hero his life because of his own vendetta. Even in fighting his way up the tower at Eye Island, his brother had paid the price for his success. Now he was hanging on to his own life after fighting a villain that belonged on death row with the aim of protecting his peers, and the other boy had been taken away anyway. Every time the goal is within my grasp, it slips away, he thought despairingly as the tears began to soak into his girlfriend's shirt. Am I not cut out to be a hero after all? His shoulders began to shake as his fingers awkwardly clutched at her back, and the soft sobs forced their way out of his throat. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice muffled by her shirt. I'm so sorry. Don't do that, Mina replied in a lowered voice, though he could feel her tears dripping into his hair. You can't apologize for something that isn't your fault. The League did this, not you. Kurai paused in mid-sob before saying, I don't know that I could do this anymore. Even after Akururi sacrificed his own quality of life to help me, to make me better, and even now, I failed at every turn. A real hero, Mina cut him off as she held him tighter, saying, they don't give up when life keeps knocking them down. They pick themselves up and stand their ground. And I know that my hero has it in him to come back from this. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday, I know that the hero Kai is going to triumph over every villain that comes up against him. She pulled back so that she could look at him through her own teary eyes and add, You're going to be the best hero that the world has ever seen, Kurai. You've been getting knocked down, yeah, but you've also been standing up to the forces of evil, keeping the rest of us safe since we started at UA, and you're not stopping now. Her words touched him, but the weight of his defeat and anguish still sought to smother him like an avalanche. I want to believe what you're saying, he admitted as he dropped his gaze, too ashamed to meet her eyes. But how do I come back from something like this? I'm a cripple again, a liability to others. What if this is a sign that I'm not meant for this? In spite of his defeatist words, his tears were slowing down considerably. Mina reached under his chin and brought his gaze back up to meet hers so that he could see her determined expression. When you were being held back by the aneurysms, it didn't stop you from trying to become a hero. It didn't stop you from reaching out to Midoriya and helping him control his quirk. It definitely didn't stop you from winning the sports festival, and there's more than a few villains that you took down during the raid with Gang Orca that can testify to your abilities. Your mind didn't stop you back then, so your arm shouldn't now. She held eye contact with him for a few seconds to make sure that he had gotten the message before she took her hand off his jaw. As soon as he was able to speak, he asked in a low tone, "Will you help me get to where I need to go? Because I sure as hell don't know what to do now." The only thing that he was certain of in that moment was that if he was going to move forward in a positive way, he couldn't do it alone. "Whatever you need," Mina promised him. "I promise I'll protect you until you're ready for whatever the world can throw at you." "You sure about that?" he asked as his eyes dropped again. "The world seems bent on throwing just about everything at me." "Look at me." Once the wounded boy had met Mina's searching gaze again, she told him, "I love you, Kurai. That means I'm going to tackle your problems with you, however crazy it may sound." Shiro's words about his wife came back to Kurai, so he managed to crack the tiniest smile as he said, "You're not crazy." "And thank you." "You're welcome." Despite her tears, Mina smiled as she sat on the bed next to him, putting her hand underneath his as she did so, not wanting to mess with the IV that was on top. "Can I ask a favor?" "Uh-huh." "Stay the night with me," he asked in a small voice. "I don't think I'm going to be able to get any solid rest otherwise." Mina's face sobered a little as she reached up to brush some of his hair out of his face and murmured, "Of course. I won't leave you alone for a second, I promise." "Even if my mom flips out?" Kurai teased weakly as he blinked away some of the residual tears in his eyes. "Well, I mean..." After a few more moments of quiet with just the two of them, Mina sent a text from her phone, which saw Ida and Todoroki coming into the room a short while after that. Ida, Kurai was surprised to see, had tears in his eyes as he beheld the sight of his friend's ruined limb, and Todoroki was so taciturn that he reminded the others of how he had been when they had first met each other. "Kurai, I'm so sorry that this has happened to you," Ida said in a broken voice. "I failed you as a class rep and as your friend." "Nothing to be done about it." Kurai shrugged as he forced a weak grin onto his face. "I suppose this is what I get for giving you so much grief about staying." "You didn't go out of your way to find trouble," Ida argued vehemently. "You and the others were attacked, like at the USJ, and you had permission to fight. You did nothing to deserve this, and yet..." The bespectacled student stopped, his words failing him as he cast his gaze to his feet in shame and sorrow. "It should be me on that bed, not you." "I'd rather it be me than you," Kurai replied firmly, though Mina caught his eye for a second while he looked away from their de facto leader. Drawing in a breath to steady himself, he went on to say, "When I become a hero, this will be something that I always look back on as a reason to keep fighting. It'll be hard, and I already hate that it's happening, but as I've been reminded, this isn't the first time that my body has tried to hold me back. I beat it before, and I'll do it again. I won't let this happen to someone else, not if I can do something to prevent it." Mina said nothing, but she squeezed his hand lightly in a gesture of silent approval. As Ida straightened up, Kurai told him, "You're the class rep, but not everything that happens to us is on you." Turning to Todoroki, who had yet to say a word, he added, "My condition isn't your fault either. In reality, you probably saved my life." "I overheard the doctor talking to your parents," the other boy said in a dull tone. "He said that you were nearly dead for a few seconds. If I hadn't burned you, if you hadn't cauterized my arm, I'd probably be fighting infections in addition to a worse case of blood loss." Kurai corrected him, having noted that his friend was coming up to touch his own burn scar. "Your fire saved me, Todoroki. You did good." "It still felt wrong, using my flames to cause my friend pain," his friend replied, looking sad. "I keep trying to look at it like you've described, but I just haven't been able to." "Dude, my boyfriend needs a pick-me-up, not a buzzkill," Mina said as she crossed her arms with a frown. "He's trying to thank you for what you did, but you're too focused on feeling bad that you can't even acknowledge that." Todoroki blinked a couple of times before he bowed to Kurai in accompaniment with the words, "She's right. I'm sorry, Hikari." As he stood back up, he asked, "Is there anything that I can do for you?" "Just keep me updated on what's going on with our classmates that ended up in the hospital." Kurai grinned slightly, glad to see that his friend was at least being made not to dwell on what had happened in the forest. Next trick is to get me to stop thinking about that. Next trick is to get me to stop thinking about it. Oof. Still feeling the head injury. "I can help with that," Ida said as he took off his glasses to wipe at his eyes. Jiro and Hagakure are actually in a couple of rooms down the hall due to severe poisoning. Apparently there was a villain who was producing an airborne toxin that mixed in with the smoke from the fire, Todoroki added. Tetsu and Kendo from Class B took him down, but he had already succeeded in poisoning several of our peers by that time. Yayorozu was injured by another one of those Nomu creatures, but Recovery Girl was able to heal most of the head trauma that was inflicted, Ida informed him. Ms. Xiaolong was admitted with several broken ribs and serious internal bleeding, but she'll be okay in a few days, provided she does what the doctors tell her. Midoriya also suffered broken arms, but the only permanent damage he sustained were the scars on his hand being made a little worse. Todoroki cut back in to say, everyone else was visiting Yayorozu when we got the news from Ashido that you were cleared to have visitors. They're all waiting in turns to come see you, provided that you're up to it. Kurai hesitated, not wanting to be rude, but he also knew that he'd have to switch to a conventional painkiller soon, which would leave him in poor shape to receive visitors, not to mention how tired he felt. What time is it? He asked after a moment of quiet thought. It's late morning, Todoroki answered. In the ICU room, which was mostly cut off from the outside, it was difficult to tell if it was morning or evening, as the clock on the wall did not indicate an AM or a PM. You've been sleeping for a full day and 2 nights. Seeing Kurai's reluctance to accommodate their classmates, despite it being early in the visiting hours, Mina cut in now, saying, maybe everyone else can come later. I know I'd want a nap after everything that's happened to him. I'm sorry, guys. Kurai apologized when Ida looked a question at him. I know I've been sleeping for a while, but she's right. I feel like crap. No wonder, given your injury, surgery, and blood transfusions, the taller boy mused. Just be sure to thank Uraraka as soon as you're able. Huh? Kurai looked at his friend with no small amount of confusion at the sudden change in subject. What's Uraraka done? She's been providing some of the blood for you since your physiology is compatible, Todoroki answered, surprising Kurai. It was lucky, really. You have one of the rarest blood types, and the hospital was running low on the supply. She volunteered to help out as soon as she found out that she was a match for you. Oh, Kurai said, surprised and touched that the girl would do that for him. Back in the day before quirks existed, Kurai could have been a recipient for O-negative blood, but due to the way that the human body had changed with superpowers, it was now better for people not to cross-donate, instead sticking to their own blood types. I would have been first to help, but I may be, Mina said with a rueful grin. Sorry. Seriously, people, stop apologizing for stuff that you can't control. Kurai chuckled softly. I'm just glad that you reached here, so let's leave it at that. Very well, Ida said swiftly. We're glad that you're alive, Kurai, and we look forward to helping you recover however we can. We'll all move forward from this, together. Agreed, Kurai nodded. He then raised the stump of his arm and said with a completely straight face, Shake on it? So he died. Kind of. But before anybody asks...
He's only mostly dead.
He's only mostly dead. Before anybody gets started, no. That is not the death to which I am referring to in the prologue.
No. Like, when would he have even had time to record that audio from the introduction?
Yep.
That's what I keep asking. I'm like, guys.
Yep.
He's in the middle of nowhere on a camping trip. He doesn't really have anything to do that with.
This is true. Yeah, and if you call... I'll... If you guys want to go back, go back and look at the prologue again and try and get any more hints about it.
It's not like he had any special intel he could give the cops anyway.
No,
so
nothing that. Yeah, nothing that they didn't. Well, actually, no. He doesn't. So he doesn't know about Tsukuuchi being All Might's friend at this point. So he doesn't know. He doesn't even know that anybody on the police force would know about One for All. But,
so it's like clearly this is not the death. Yeah. This is just mostly dead.
Mostly. All dead. Start looking for change.
Oh man. Anyway,
check his pockets for change.
So we open with the helicopter scene. We got this doctor.
So for all the medical stuff in this chapter, I actually consult. I've mentioned before I have some friends who are medically licensed. I consulted with them on all the correct terminology and all that would be used in a situation like this. So feel free to fact check.
It wasn't called an AED anymore. That was the one thing I had a question about. I feel like because it was called an AED, but they're not called. It's a different term now.
Is it?
Yeah. When I was a lifeguard, it was an AED. But I think
I feel
they
like
said
that.
it was not.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But people
but
know what he's talking
yeah,
about. So it's
I
fine.
I felt like with that one, it's like if I put that word in there, it's like okay, no,
We know what it is.
Yeah, it's like I preferred to put in AED because you guys are more likely to recognize. Oh, that's what he's doing. He's gonna.
Yeah.
Yep.
Defibrillator.
Yeah. Yep. Whatever it's called. Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
Anyway, so we got the medical jargon, and then we have the doctor character.
Yeah, doctor character. So the doctor actually. So Dr. Akabane, real quick, is actually not my invention. I got permission to use. There's an artist on Instagram. I need to pull them up. Okay, so their handle on Instagram, you should definitely check them out. They're a really good artist. It's all lowercase, PRMTHS.C. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's an abbreviation for Prometheus or something, but they're a really good artist. You should definitely check them out on Instagram. I'll try and include a link to them down in the description. But I reached out to them. They're a really cool person. And I was like, hey, I've got a chapter coming up where I need a doctor character. And one of her characters is a doctor. And I asked if I could borrow him. And they were very nice about it. They said, yeah, absolutely. Just credit me. And let me know when it's happening. So I got the chance to interact with them like that. And it was really cool. But so just a disclaimer, Akabane is not mine. But I really like his character design. So he and the other character that also designed by the same Instagram artist, the daughter that he talks about in this chapter, same artist, same content creator, I should say. She and again, I had to get permission to use that, but both characters I really like. I absolutely recommend giving this person a look on Instagram because they're really talented. And they put out content pretty regularly too. Like I want to say like once a week. I really like them. Sorry, I think I got sidetracked with that. But we got Dr. Akabane. He's talking to Kurai. He's kind of like, man, it's amazing that you're still alive, man.
We also had the kind of heaven experience, afterlife.
The afterlife experience. Yeah. Sorry, I got ahead of myself there for a second. So like honestly, I just kind of like I have my personal beliefs about what heaven and hell look like. But I kind of tried to go for a more general idea of what a good afterlife looks like for this story. And I think I did all right. But yeah, I thought it would be good. I really looked forward to writing this scene because we see Kurai talk about his Uncle Shiro and like how his Uncle Shiro is one of the main reasons he wants to become a hero in the first place. But I really wanted to give him a chance to like interact with him as he's become. Like I could have always done a flashback or a memory or something like that, but that wouldn't I don't think that would quite carry the same emotional impact as this did. And like especially like given the circumstances that happened, you know, Kurai's like kind of come to this perfect place and he's like, oh, okay, I guess my work's done. And his uncle's like, yeah, about that. I feel like if it had come from anybody else, he would have gotten really ticked about it. But you know, his uncle was there to kind of kind of guide him and continue to he could fulfill that mentor figure moment one more time. I thought that was a
I
thought that was a
feel
good
like
scene.
he was able to get some closure, which was good, which he needs because he's about to, you know, all the crazy trauma that's happening.
Oh my goodness, yeah, he's about to have a rough time
a little
of it.
bit.
Yeah. And also before that, so the scene where Kurai's parents received the news too, like
that's rough.
Like I thought, like I tried to think about like how I would feel if like God forbid something happened to one of my kids, and they were being flown out to the hospital, like how I'd react, and Becca was pointing something out to me. She asked like because I mentioned that. The last time that Kurai's dad looked like that was when he found out that his brother had been killed on that raid.
And I was like, what
about when Akurui became a vegetable? So I have a couple of reasons for why he didn't react as badly to Akurui ending up in a semi-vegetative state. Is because A, they kind of knew that was going to happen at some point. Like, they knew, like, obviously they didn't think it was going to happen that soon, but they knew
he was on a timetable.
They knew it was on a timetable. They knew it was going to happen eventually. So they were already kind of prepared for it. Like, no doubt they were upset about it. And the other thing is...
It wasn't as heart-wrenching, and they also knew he was going to pull through for now, at least.
For now, at least. Yeah, he'll be all right for at least a few more years. And, like, something to remember is like this guy has seen like all the worst things that the criminal activity can offer. Like he doesn't shake. He's not easily shaken. But I think no matter like I think no matter who you are, like what your job occupation is or whatever, if it's your kid who's like on death's bed, and even if they survive, their life is going to change completely. That's not something that you can just be okay with. And like
with Akurui, it's the same thing though.
Not again. They kind of
his life is he can't do anything.
Again, they kind of knew that was coming. With Kurai, I was like, it's kind of the idea. It's like Kurai seems kind of invincible almost. Like he's been through so much already that it's like doesn't seem like this kid can die.
For me, it seems like, you know, for Akurui, it's like, yeah, crap, his life is being shortened and the quality is not great.
Yeah. But
they don't know if Kurai is gonna pull through it or not.
Yeah, I was getting to that. Yeah, it's that and the suddenness of it. Mm-hmm. They couldn't have seen this coming. Mm-hmm. Like no one could have. Mm-hmm. So that was I just like so yeah, definitely me being a parent definitely played into writing that scene in particular. And I know it's a small one, but I thought it was kind of important. And one of the other things that I thought was little but also important was the mom's reaction, where she's like, first concern is like, well, how's Kurai? And then she remembers, oh wait, there's other kids out there too. How are they? I feel like that's something I would do. Is like your first instinct is like, oh, what is my kid okay? And then you remember, oh wait, there's a bigger picture to this too. It's like, and like, you know, as a police officer, Kurai's dad would have to be part of, would have to be keeping that bigger picture in mind. So there's a whole lot of stuff that has to go in. Like it surprises me like how much attention to detail and thought I have to put into like even the little scenes, because I think those little scenes can make or break a chapter.
Okay. So then we have then we have the doctor conversation, and the doctor kind of makes an assumption that Kurai's probably not going to follow the hero track anymore, because he clearly has reservations about his daughter wanting that.
Yeah, so a bit of context for their backstory, because I don't really have time to go into this in Your Hero Academia, but this guy was actually married to a pro hero, and they have a daughter together, but she kept putting her work ahead of her family, and she wasn't a great, like, she wasn't ever outright abusive, but like she wasn't a good spouse. She wasn't a good spouse, and she was not a great mom. So that's kind of what. So
he's a little jaded toward heroes.
A little, like, he's not really jaded toward heroes. He just kind of like that part
knows
where
what it does to your personal life.
Exactly. That's why he said that's like, it kind of seems like, oh wait a minute, dude, are you seriously telling this kid that like it's not that hard on your body? Like he says to Kurai, he's like, you know, this doesn't just do stuff to you physically, it does stuff to you mentally as well. It's kind of like, hey man, they say this isn't the time to be bringing this up. B, it's like, how much worse can it get physically?
So clearly the doctor has his own issues.
He has his own issues, but at least by the end of it, he's kind of like, oh wait, I'm sorry, I'm being unprofessional here.
Yeah, he seems like a genuine person.
Yeah, I
don't know the character.
The character, yeah, I like
cool.
Well, there's a reason I asked to borrow the character. He's a really cool guy. Nice. But yeah, his daughter wanted to be in the hero course, but she couldn't quite make it, so she went into general studies. But yeah, so he has that conversation with the doctor, and we kind of have him. He tries to say like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I did die, and they're just kind of like, no, man, no, you didn't. Your heart didn't stop. And I think that's kind of a gray area in terms of the medical field, because it's like
there's a lot of people who have those experiences, whether they're real or not. They're real to those people. Yeah. So
for all intents and purposes of this story, though,
Kurai went good character development.
Yeah, Kurai definitely went to the afterlife. Like, his body may not have died all the way, but he definitely wasn't.
Spiritually, he was there.
He was there for a little bit. Yeah. Let's see what. So following that, we get his parents in the room and just.
Yeah, which is hard. His mom and that forehead kiss with the mom. I'm like.
Yeah, that was a rough. Yeah, that was a rough scene to write. And then fun fact. So I'm sure you guys noticed my voice got real muffled for a lot of the dialogue with Kurai here. I actually have to sleep with a mask similar to the one that he wears during this scene. So I actually pulled it out. I actually pulled it out of my room. I hooked it up, and like every time I talk to his I talked his lines, I like had to fit my face to the thing. Because I was trying to make it. I
have to go back and listen to that.
Oh no. But yeah, that was just I was kind of like, oh wait, I could do this thing. That'll make it a little more interesting. Why not?
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then his dad clearly is like he's being pushed to the edge because he lost his temper with his officers, which apparently doesn't happen.
Nope. Well, I mean, I don't think you can get to be in positions like that if you can't keep control of your temper. Like
generally,
yeah. There's always exceptions, like Gordon Ramsay. That's his entire personality. No, but like think about it. Like he's a showrunner, and like he's in charge of his own show. You can't get to positions like that usually.
Bro, speaking of Gordon Ramsay, quick side note: I saw this meme, and it was talking about the possibility of him being a Hogwarts professor.
I think I showed that to you.
No, I found it, and I showed it to you.
No, I'm the one that messaged it to you. Yeah, because he's the one he would take over Slytherin's book. No, you didn't.
Okay. Apparently there's an actual fan fiction, and I really want to know about that. So anyway, sorry.
Wait, that's a fan fiction?
If you read the post that I sent you...
No, you did. I saw the thing itself. I didn't read the description. I just thought, hey,
fan fiction.
That's hilarious. I'm going to have to check this out. That's amazing.
Yeah. So homework, we're all going to do that now. Sorry, ADD.
My point is, like, you can't get into positions of responsibility and power like that if you can't keep control of yourself.
What about Endeavor?
Endeavor has the exceptions to every rule. Exceptions to every rule. But there's a reason Endeavor's not the number one hero. It's All Might.
Yes. Okay. Moving on. Then we have the conversation with Mina.
Before that, I kind of want to touch on the conversation that he has with his parents. Like, going into it, I kind of thought about having his parents kind of be divided about it. Like his mom being like, no, you can't keep doing this. You're going to get yourself killed. And his dad being like, well, what about my job? I can do the same. It's like, I don't do the same thing.
But I feel like that's something she's been living for so long.
Yeah.
It's just like, she knows that she's just got to trust
she knows him. She knows that if he's gonna pursue this path, she needs to support him so he doesn't feel like he has another burden added onto him at this point. Because he's gonna have plenty of those.
Even if she's feeling that, because what mom wouldn't be feeling that?
Oh my goodness,
She's probably, because she's lived this with her husband, she knows that she just needs to play that supportive role right now, even if it's hard.
Yep. So yeah, that was a very important scene. I felt like because the next what's that?
Having fun there.
So like in the next scene, we start to understand that like Kurai's kind of putting up a front with everybody, and like he's just kind of like he's not losing.
He hasn't really had a chance to fully process everything yet. It's like all of a sudden you wake up, everyone's talking to you. Everyone's having meltdowns, so he's having to kind of try to keep it together for their sake.
Yeah.
And he hasn't really had that moment
to process.
To really sit there by himself because he was tired, and like the last time he was by himself, he just passed out.
Yep.
So it's like he's not quite okay. He's not okay.
No one should. If someone's okay at that point, they're not okay. No one's okay after that.
Yeah. So. He's not quite ready to visit with everyone.
Yeah. I wanted it's unfortunate, but I feel like a lot of Kurai and Mina's defining moments in their relationship have been in hospital visits.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes me sad, but
I feel like that's how life works, though.
Yeah.
Because you live life alongside people, and you don't always have those opportunities to have those deep conversations until something really intense happens.
Yeah.
And then you're in this situation where you can't not talk about it.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how life's going to turn out. And I feel like even with people that I'm super close to, we'll have very shallow conversations most of the time. And it's not until something crazy happens that we actually have a really intense discussion. Yeah. So I think that's pretty realistic, honestly. I mean, I know everybody's different.
I'm not saying that I regret writing the scene that way. I'm just like, man, I need to have them like have more meaningful connections like that don't involve a hospital visit.
Yep. All right. So
but yeah, she Yep, give Mina the girlfriend of the year award again, because she's the one who's talking about, like, he's kind of like, oh wait, maybe I should quit this.
Yeah.
Maybe I should quit while I'm ahead.
She knows that he has to
Yep.
pursue his dream.
Yep. He would hate himself if he would hate himself, or he would hate something if he allowed this to defeat him. So that was that, like, not all of it was bad. Like there was some good that came out of it, where she's like, hey, you know, like, I know this sucks, I know this is hard, but I'll be there with you to help you through this. Which I thought was a really cool scene to write. I had a lot of fun with that.
Yes, Taco.
Clickbait toggle.
Taco. Okay. Sorry. End of the chapter.
Not quite the end of the chapter.
No.
We have Ida and Todoroki coming in.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I thought about it being Ida and Deku coming in, actually, but
Deku's still in the hospital, right?
He's not busted up as badly as he was in the original.
Yeah, that's right.
He's among the friends that are like kind of waiting with everybody else to come up and see him. I decided to have it be Todoroki because Todoroki's gonna have the guilt eating at him, because like like in his head he knows that he probably saved his life, but at the same time it's like, you know, Endeavor's flames never did him any favors. So he's still kind of trying to reconcile the fact that he burned one of his closest friends. Like, and he feels like, oh wow, maybe if I had just gone a little bit further, maybe I would have killed him. Like, he's still got to wrap his head. He's got his own processing to do.
And I'm sure at this point they know, like, you know, they've been around him enough to be like, okay, he needs some like closure to make, like, just to see that he's okay.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that his friends would send him in sooner.
Yeah. And, you know, Ida had to be in there because, like, again, Ida and Kurai aren't the bestest of friends anymore, but, like, there's no way. Yeah, there's no way that Ida's gonna be one of the later people to come in and see him. It's like, he's the class representative, and he's known Kurai forever. Like, there's no way he's missing this. Like, oh man, like, I hate doing Ida. Like, I'm not doing Ida dirty, but I'm just like, man, he doesn't get a break in this either, because it's like he thought his brother was gonna die, basically, and, you know, he just got like Tensei's gonna live now.
Basically adopted brother who was in the same shoes.
Tensei is like paralyzed from the waist down. Pretty much the same thing just happened to Akaruing. Now Kurai's been on death's bed.
Yeah, so, and now Ida's gonna have the guilt that he's not the one in that situation. Because, of course, being Ida, he's always very self-critical, and he's gonna be thinking, oh my gosh, I should have been the one to step up.
I mean, well, think about it this way, too. It's like, growing up, they both knew that they wanted to become heroes. So I imagine, so it's like, they've talked about, like, oh yeah, we're gonna form an agency together, we're gonna be heroes together, we're gonna take on all the bad guys together. So, like, for something like this to happen, it's like, he's probably had, like, those dreams in his head, and he's like, oh my god, I should have been out there with him. Like, he wouldn't go against the teacher's wishes, of course. At least, well, no,
not without a little extra push from some special personality.
Yeah, but, like, as far as he knew, everybody was gonna make it back okay.
Yeah.
But, like, now in his head, he's like this. He's like, you know, this is nothing like what we dreamed it would be. Like, he couldn't even be there for his friend.
Yeah.
So, yay, trauma and PTSD all around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm, like, totally drawing a blank.
You know how to English real good, right?
I'm drawing a blank at how that chapter ends. I'm brain dead at this point.
I kind of tried to end it with a joke where Kurai's just where they're all kind of having their hoorah moment, and Kurai's just like, hat shake on it. It's, like, Mina even says, like, kind of in the middle of the chapter, she's like, this is like,
for you to crack a joke about something.
It's like, that's how you know he's not okay.
Yeah.
It's like, up until now, it's like, he'll get bummed out about stuff.
Like my personality.
He's like, but yeah, he's like, if he's not making a joke about it, oh no, this is really bad.
Was that inspired by me?
Not consciously. One other thing I wanted to touch on. So the silver hair thing. So this actually came about from a teacher of mine who I had in Australia. Super cool guy. One of my favorite teachers while I was out there. I had him for 2 years but he only taught me for 3 semesters. So I was there in 7th grade. He taught me. I came in for 8th grade, and like his name was on the itinerary. But when we got there was like a long-term substitute. We were like, what happened to him? And the sub was kind of like, I don't know. They just asked me to come in long term. I think he's sick. Like he was like he's sick or something. I'm like, oh, okay. So we just kind of assumed like, oh, he'll be back in a few weeks or something. Entire semester goes by, nobody hears from this guy. Second semester comes around and he's back, but he had like, and he was kind of like already like he wasn't an old guy. Like he kind of had some salt and pepper going on, but like just on the right side of his head, like kind of like in this area. Just this shock of white hair had appeared like out of nowhere, and we were all like, "Whoa, what happened?" And he was telling us, he was like, "Well, so basically, his lungs kept filling up with fluid, so he kept almost choking to death, and it took him a while to like get all the fluid pumped out of his lungs. Like it took several surgeries and stuff.
Really bad pneumonia.
Pretty much, yeah,
like,
yeah,
extreme.
Yeah, it was really bad, and like he said that like after one procedure or another, like when he went in. Like his hair, again, salt and pepper, but like when he woke up, not the next, like it wasn't the next day, but like the next evening or something like that, he wakes up, he gets up to check himself in his mirror, his wife's there, she helps him out, and he looks in the mirror and he just see like the hair like turned like overnight.
That's crazy.
And we were all like, that's insane. So here's how this ties into Kurai. I specifically designed him to have a fairly boring aesthetic. Like, people make fun of Deku kind of because he's very plain looking. Green hair and freckles, we think, well, that's not plain looking. In a world of superhuman society, it is. Then you got Kurai. Dark hair, brown eyes, nothing that stands out about him. Now,
he's like the boring guy in Psyche K.
Yeah. The guy that's average in every way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nothing good or bad ever happens to him. Yeah. So that's kind of his aesthetic, in terms of design. Now, he's got a missing arm, and I was just like, nah, that's not enough. No, I thought it would be interesting if I gave him a slightly different hairstyle, and it's like you got Todoroki, who's already got the half white, but I decided that like. Thinking back on my teacher, I was like, that was a really sudden, surprising change. It's one of the reasons I remember him so well. And I kind of thought that it would be interesting to like give him like not an off-putting design. I don't know how to describe it. Like,
oh, yeah.
something to ruin the symmetry, I guess. But again, the arm with, I don't know.
You gotta have that unique looking character.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have the shock of white hair now.
Yep.
At least he doesn't look like a skunk. It could be on both sides.
This is true. This is very true. Why'd you put that image in my head now?
No, that's what I was picturing when you were describing your teacher. I know. Moving on.
All right. Wait, what do we move on to?
I think it's over.
Is it over? Okay. All right.
No one voted on the poll.
No one voted. What's wrong with you guys? No one voted. So I'm just gonna throw up a vote on my Instagram account. If you guys follow me there, go to Instagram, vote on it.
On mine too.
What's that?
I might put it on mine too, even though like hardly any of my followers are people involved in fan fiction. But that's okay.
Yeah.
A few of you guys are on my Instagram.
Don't vote for her. She sabotages.
I won't say who did which one.
They already know who did which one.
Well, that's not fair.
What are you talking about? We showed.
Oh,
we just played it a few weeks ago.
That's right.
They know who did which one.
Okay. Well, the people.
Also, I'm pretty sure they could. I'm fairly certain they'd be able to tell your art style aside from mine at this point, because I put my stuff up all the time, and
okay.
I think they know which one is mine, anyways.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in regards to the next few weeks, so we'll be away for a few weeks. You won't get any new chapters during that time. Sorry, but I need a vacation and
see green stuff and lightning bugs.
Yeah.
And water. We don't see water very often.
Yeah, we're desert savages. We don't get it's
icky.
We don't get real water. You don't get real water here.
That's why we're so excited when it rained the other day.
No, I was kind of glad that this was the chapter that I was gonna go on break for, because I was just like, man, the last month has just been depression after depression I need to leave them on something where it's like this isn't a happy chapter, but at least at this point you're like,
know.
it's okay.
Okay, I tried to convince him to release another one, but he won't.
I need a break. I need a
He
break,
needs a
man.
break.
So
Sorry.
the week we get back, we'll do another video, and I'll give you guys some more things to think about. So yeah, for now, it's okay. He's gonna live for now. Things are gonna be still interesting. We'll get to that later. Thank you guys so much for listening in. Thank you for your support and reading. And we'll see you guys for the next one.
Yep.
All right. Stay plus ultra, everybody.